Hi, Emma.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Emma.
How's it
Hi.
going?
All good, all good.
Amazing. Okay, we're going to skip that because Emma's on. I was going to get everybody to start thinking about something that they wanted to get out of this 60-minute session with you.
Oh,
I'm
go
loving
ahead.
the barn.
Pretend I'm not here.
The barn vibe is very awesome. You're in the Cotswolds, right?
Yes, yeah, North Cotswolds.
Nice. Is it sunny today?
It is beautiful. I mean, absolutely. Have a look at this. So we have like pure blue sky, just perfect.
Oh, wow. Oh, that looks beautiful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's quite funny how we met. We met at Downing Street.
I just
Was
dropped that in.
Right? Was that not the weirdest day?
It was a random day, and it was one of the first times I've been frightened walking through those gates at all. I look at MPs now in such a different light. Oh my goodness, I wouldn't want to do that every day.
Right? It was really bizarre. I found, there we go. The chat, I think you that on your it. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully that will work. But I was able to get an insight into a part of the business process that I had never seen before, which is growth in scale.
Yes.
And when you don't know what you're doing, like getting up and running is almost like a lucky fluke.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're like, hey.
I totally agree. Scaling is pretty much the same.
And so what I want to do is to have you share your story. And I've got some kind of more specific questions around the process. And then we'll open it up for a Q&A, and then people on the line can ask their questions.
Yeah. Now, can you hear me okay? I'm going to take these out. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm just using the audio on the computer, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
So why don't you tell us, to start with, your story? How did you start the little soap company?
So how did it started as a hobby business that accidentally grew genuinely. And I'd love to sit there and go, I found a gap in the market. I found it. No, it was a hobby business that went wrong. And I think just be very careful what you wish for.
So when you say that, when you started out, what was your intention then? What made you decide to get at your kitchen table and make soap? Did you come from a cosmetics background?
No. I was working in television. I was a freelancer. I was a researcher. Let me just go and take this noisy thing off the dog behind me.
Okay.
Sorry, Henry. Sorry. It's the only noisy toy he has, and he decides to pick it up. So my grandma made soap. Well, sorry, she didn't make soap. My grandma loved soap. So as a family, my gran would always come back from holiday. She'd give us soap. And it was one of those kind of unspoken things. It was just what Gran did. And, you know, she'd come over with a brown paper bag and we'd say, thank you very much. And it'd appear in the bathroom and we'd all use it. And we never discussed it. It was just a sort of family norm. And when I realized that actually I was the anomaly using bar soap was in my 30s. We had a nightmare. We had the bathroom all kind of like, I lived in a very old cottage back then. And I had a very simple, take the bath out, put a new one in. And the kind of numpties who did it managed to sort of put their foot through the floor, which the floor then fell down into the lounge. It was this 6-week massive nightmare. And I had no bathroom. And during that time, living in a small village, everyone was very, very kind and said, I didn't have a toilet, I had nothing. They said, look, we'll set up a rota and you can come and use our shower, etc. Now, stood in neighbours' shower rooms is so different just to being in their kitchen and having a cup of tea with them and going to their downstairs loo, because you see what they use. So the one lady who was down the road who had terrible psoriasis was using Radox, you know, and it's just like, ooh, do people use that? Ooh, I see it in the shops, but, you know, I never bought it.
You were getting a little bit judgy.
Yeah, just a little bit, you know, but it was like, oh, and then slowly I realised that I was the weirdo turning up with my bar of soap. So, yeah, it became a bit of a kind of village joke of, oh, Emma, would you like a glass of wine or a bar of soap? What would it be? And, you know, I put up with that and it was okay. And then things all happened for a reason. A few months later, my gran had died now at this point, and Mom was kind of going through, her stocks were dwindling. And Mom phoned up one day and she said, you know what, I'm having a bit of a moment. There's only like 3 bars left. We're going to have to start buying soap. And that's like, it was the last line to Gran. So I went into the supermarket, had a look at the soap counter, and it was really dull and staid. There was nothing pure, nothing natural. It was all mass-produced beauty bars. You know, there were detergents, for want of a better word. It wasn't soap. So at that point, I started trying to make my own. I used to go to farmers markets, try and find a dealer so we could have like someone who could supply the family. And it was really hard because we'd find someone really good and then they wouldn't be there the next month. And then the following, you know, it was really difficult, first world problems. So I started making my own. It was rubbish. And what we've got to remember is this was 12 years ago, which it sounds nothing, but speaking to our son, he's like, that's ridiculous. There wasn't Amazon, so you couldn't just buy a soap making book. There wasn't Google. There was Ask Jeeves and there was Yahoo search. That's all we had. Honestly, it's like, you know, the youngsters of today don't know how hard it was. So I went to a charity shop, found a few books on soap making, but they were all American because soap making in America is massive. So bought a couple of books, started making it. Now I'd love to go. I took to it like a duck to water, and that was, you know, the rest is history. I was rubbish at it. It was hopeless. It was.
Was it really messy?
I just didn't know what I was doing, but the problem was I didn't have the right oils. So I was like recreating the recipes using sunflower oil or vegetable oil, because, you know, we don't have canola oil or peanut oil on tap over here, and to buy peanut oil in a little 100ml thing, super expensive, and I wasn't going to use 600ml of it or something. So it was rubbish. It was all crumbling. I started hand making. I always do arty things. So I was hand making paper and wrapping it beautifully, giving it to friends, and then it would just fall apart. So no one ever used it. Now it was okay to use, but it wasn't like what you buy in the supermarket. So it was a bit of a joke of Emma and her sort of like, you know, bubbling away in the kitchen, but it was just a hobby. So then one day, it was a village fete. I went along. There was a guy stood at the entrance who was like one of the lads in the village, and he's called Tipper because he used to tip all the cows over when they were sleeping. And Tipper stood there and he said, "Oh, Emma, we've been waiting for you." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, we want to borrow your wheelbarrow." And I'm like, "Right." And he's going, "Yeah, because there's a lady down there selling soap. You could get loads." And I'm like, "Right, okay." Now, had Tipper not have said that, I'd have just gone in, seen my friends, had a glass of wine with them, and that would have been the end of it. But because he said that, I'm like, right. I said, "You know what? I might go and pay her a visit. I need some advice." Went down, met this lovely lady called Jane, the first real life soap maker I ever met. Her soap wasn't crumbly. Hers looked like soap. Bought a few bars off her, had a conversation, and I said, "Why does yours look like that?" And she said, "It's all down to the oils that I use." And I said, "Well, what do you use?" And she said, "Collie palm is the best soap maker's recipe." She said, "I've been making it for 20 odd years, selling it in horse buckets, and that's what I think is the way to go." So I said, "Well, where on earth can I buy coconut olive palm?" You know, because you couldn't, you know, everything was brochures back then. So she gave me a phone number. I phoned up this company, got the brochure, and that was how I started making. Now, long story short, I ended up buying her recipes off her because she'd moved to Spain. So it's not my recipe. I now know I could have done it, but I wouldn't because it was so out of my kind of comfort zone. So that was how it all started. And, you know, all these funny little coincidences and the bathroom floor falling through and having to use it, you know, all of that was a part of that process. And it was only when, after that village fete, I stood in my new shower room, within the shower, using Jane's soap, going, "Oh my God, this should belong on the shelf of Waitrose." And that was that light bulb moment.
So is that what made you, right? So is that what made you think to yourself, actually, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
This should do it. So then what did you do? I said, what did you do next?
Oh, sorry, it all froze then. What did I do?
I said, what did you do next?
So what did I do next? So I have no experience with retail, with setting up a business, with knowing what I was doing. I mean, genuinely, I have no experience whatsoever. So it's just having that passion and that belief. I knew I'd got a really good product. So it was like, okay, let's get this and let's get it on that shelf, because it felt really wrong that back then, it was 2008, you couldn't walk into a high street supermarket and pick up a decent bar of soap. And just before that time, Jamie Oliver had been banging his drum about, look on the back of ingredients, you know, if you go into Iceland and buy a lasagna, it's got 300 ingredients in it. Actually, if you make it from scratch, it does only take half an hour and it's only got so many ingredients. And that's the same for skincare. And I've always made my own face packs and played around. that's exactly the same. What we put on our skin gets absorbed. So what we eat, what we put on our skin, we should be really, really careful. So I was already of that organic ilk anyway. So made the product, literally emailed Waitrose sort of that afternoon, didn't hear back, really rude. My background was in the media, and you, on your BlackBerry, you know, you get a reply straight away. So I was really shocked by that. So I went to the local, we have about 5 or 6 Budgeons stores, and a guy bought all of them and called them Warner Budgeons, and they specialised in local products. So I went, got a meeting with the buyer there, and turned up and put my soaps, they were all nicely boxed, and put them on the table and said, look, you do local products, this is my soap, what do you think? Would love it to be on your shelves. You've only got, you know, crap on the shelf. I think you should have proper soap. And he said, yeah, that's great. How long have you been going? And I'm going, oh, about 6 weeks now. And he sort of looked quite horrified and said, oh, and you haven't got barcodes. And I'm going, well, I can get barcodes. And he said, well, I think you should go off, you know, come back in a year when you're a bit bigger and you've got a bit more experience, and we'll have a think about it. And that was like a red rag. It was like, wow, you know, wow, wow, wow. So I drove home. I looked on Ask Jeeves and asked Jeeves, how do you get a barcode? And Jeeves gave me the name of GS1, and I joined £250 there and then, joined GS1. I got, I think it was 12,000 barcodes. I only needed 12. So I put them onto a CD-ROM, and I drove with that CD-ROM to the printers around the corner and said, can you put these onto little stickers for me? And they're like, yeah, it'll be a week or so. We'll have to order the packs in, but you're going to have to buy a pack of, you know, 5,000 or whatever. And I go, no, just put it on one big sticker. That's fine. They're like, okay. So the next morning I went back with my bacon scissors, my 12 bars of soap, got this sheet. It was just like, you know, a big sheet like this, sheet of stickers, cut out the little stickers, stuck it on to the bars of soap, went back to Steve's office. And this is where I'm just so ignorant and I'm embarrassed, but you know, we can all laugh about it now. He was sat with a room full of people around his desk, and I just didn't even consider who they might be, because I was wanting my soap on his shelves, and I'd now got a barcode, and there was a little window in the door. So I just got the bar of soap and just stuck it at the window and knocked. And that was how I got into Warner Budgeons. So then I was in Warner Budgeons in Waitrose. So that was how it all started. So I don't know if the word's tenacity or just like madness.
Amazing. Right. So then how did you fund the business from day one to that point? And then once you got into the Budgeons, did you start looking at finance? Like, oh shit.
No, because it sounds greater than it is. So we were in 5, 6 Budgeon stores. They'd probably order 12, 24 every week. Oh, sorry, every month. So soap isn't a can of beans. It doesn't fly. That was a big lesson to learn. Because it's like, well, everybody should be using this soap. Why am I not getting an order for 500 a day? So it starts slowly. It's, you know, starts really slowly. And I was in local B&Bs doing little smaller soaps. I was in local shops doing soaps. That was hard slog. And it's getting your name out there. So any publicity is good publicity, isn't it? So I connected up with the local tourist board, and in the Cotswolds, you know, there's not much going on here. So we have to make the most of what we've got. So Evesham grows asparagus. It's the big asparagus capital. So we have an asparagus festival. So how can I connect soap with asparagus? I'll make soap and put a green swirl through it. And I took a stall at the asparagus festival, and we had a special asparagus soap. And the same with the Pershore Plum Festival. I put plum kernel. So it's thinking outside the box and trying to connect with things, and that they were the best times of my life. I had such fun. I used to know all the other market holders. You know, we had stall holders. We had such fun. And you know, you come home with 500-600 quid in your pocket, which was amazing. So it was getting out there and guerrilla marketing more than anything. Now, I was still emailing Waitrose, and I'd sent samples. They were still ignoring me. I was getting very grumpy about this because I found this really, really rude. I also had, which, you know, I'm not recommending for everyone to do, but it worked for me. I had a little guide dog puppy, which I was training. So I had them for 12 months back then before they went to guide dog school. And Umber was, I think he must have been, his birthday was, he was probably about 10 weeks old, 11 weeks old. So ultimate cuteness. And he had to come in the car with me and do everything I did just to get socialized. So I just thought, you know what, enough's enough. You know, they're not answering me at Bracknell. I'm just going to go down in the car and just go and doorstop them. Didn't quite appreciate what Waitrose HQ was like. I thought it'd be like Steve's office in Broadway, which it isn't. So got in the car with them, but went to the reception and said, hi, I'd like to speak to X. And they said, but you've not got an appointment. And I'm going, no, it's really rude. I don't know if my emails are landing in spam. It's just really odd. So she said, well, you haven't got a meeting. And I'm going, but I've just driven 2.5 hours. And she said, right, well, I'll let her know you're here. So I sat there and I sat there and I sat there. I was the only person in this foyer sitting in the reception, so I got to know the receptionist quite well. And she said, come on, Emma, just call it a day. She's not going to come down. And I said,
before iPhones, like you couldn't like lose yourself in your phone. You had to...
No, I've got a little dog, you know. It was no, we had Nokias back then. You could just about text on. So I know I sound like grandma. So that was that. I'm sat there, everyone's coming in. The dog's created quite a kind of thing that everyone who likes dogs kind of is coming downstairs. So eventually my buyer apparently walked past at lunchtime, and the receptionist, who is now my best friend, said that the lady in the blue shoes is your buyer. And I'm like, right. And she said, but I have not told you that. She will be coming back. She's gone to get a sandwich. So she then came back in, didn't like dogs, hadn't planned for that. Going, I know, this is my soap, you've ignored me. And she's like really, really not impressed with me or the dog or the soap. And I've never been told no before, and I wasn't going to be told no there and then. And she just kind of said, flicking me away, going, there's no way you can upscale to produce for Waitrose. No way. She said, this, you know, you've just started. She said, just come back when you're bigger. And I'm going, but I don't want to supply the whole of Waitrose. I said, I've left my job and I've gone freelance and I need to prove this works. I only want to be in the Cheltenham store because that's where all my friends shop. So God, I just look such a twit now in hindsight. And she just said, well, it's a very nice product. And she's sniffing it and looking at it. And I go, well, I can't do that. She said, the least I could do, she said, is put you in 8 stores as a local hero. And I said, oh, I can do that. I said, I deliver to 8 stores for budgeting, so that's fine. And she's going, you've got to deliver them yourself. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely no problem. So I will be honest now, back then I was in Waitrose and I told everyone I was in Waitrose. I was having to drive an hour to some of these stores with a wine box of probably, 16 soaps, making a complete loss. If you added my time driving, the petrol, it was ridiculous. But I was in Waitrose and I kept it in Waitrose for a good 12, 18 months before we upscaled. And that gave me a stepping stone. And people took you seriously. When you said, I make soap, people go, oh, that's nice. And I'm going, but I make soap and I'm going to change the world. And I'm in Waitrose. People listen to you. So that was how that started. And then that carried on. We had a big trademark issue, had to change name to Little Soap Company. It was Naked Soap. Then what happened? Then with the trademark issue, it was interesting because I suddenly had a story and people were inviting me to go and speak at conferences and things. And it's really hard being an artisan producer because there's only a cap on what you can produce. So I could only make £40,000 a year. I'd have to bring other people in. And to bring other people in, the margins had all changed and actually it wasn't a business. So I went on stage at Harper Adams College talking about this and talking about the nightmare of having to rebrand and change the name. And there was this one lady in the audience, Kay, who kept asking really pertinent questions. And she was different to everyone else. Everyone else was kind of farmers' wives and just very casual. And she was all suited and booted. And she just kept saying, I don't get what you're saying, Emma, because on the one hand, you want to change the world and you want to make pure soap accessible to all. But on the other hand, you've never approached, for example, Tesco. So I said, oh, no, I'm a Waitrose girl. And I said, that's where my product belongs. It's rose geranium and it smells really nice and it's a Waitrose product. And she said, well, 1 in 3 people shop in Tesco. So if you want to change the world, I suggest you have a look at Tesco. She then came and visited me a week later. She was a buyer for Tesco. And she just said, look, I love what you're doing. I love your passion. I'd love to help you. You need to upscale though, because you can't. And I go, I know I can't do it. It's a nightmare. I'm just killing myself. I'm working every hour God sends. It's crazy. So she gave me, I'm really abridging this. She gave me a contract for 40,000 bars. So I had to find a factory. Now, when you talk about the financing of it, I didn't know what I was doing. I never once considered the finance aspect. So went to several factories. The one factory, I really liked the guys up there. They were just such lovely, salt of the earth, genuine. So we agreed that they were going to make it. We developed these 4 bars and very like Levi Roots and his reggae sauce. what the mass produced version is never, sadly, the same. And it just isn't, because the machinery couldn't take that recipe. We had to tweak it. It was still an organic bar. It was probably a better bar. It was beautiful. So we produced that. And where am I going with that? The finance. So put the order in for 40,000 units. It was going to be 10,000 units of each, which I'd managed to negotiate, because normally it was only 40,000 per thing. And they sent me an invoice to my follower. So I just phoned them up and said, you sent me an invoice and you want me to pay the invoice like when I receive it? And they're like, yes. Usually we ask for it up front, but we're happy to wait a month. And I'm like, well, I can't do that because I don't have £100,000 or whatever it was. And they're like, right, well, we can't produce soap. And I'm going, well, that's ridiculous. How on earth am I supposed to pay it? I think I was so ignorant. It kind of went in my favour. So I think had I gone in with a business degree or an MBA, it would have been a different story altogether. So yeah, so I said, well, that's just ridiculous. It's not like I'm just doing it and I'm going to put it on eBay. We've got a proper customer who's going to pay me. So obviously when I get paid by Tesco, I'll then pay you. And a couple of the old directors, they were lovely and old and just lovely. And they said, well, it's either a moment of madness or a moment of genius. Let's give it a go. And that was my springboard. So I don't think I should be offering advice on raising finance. But that was how.
But it is that element of when you're really passionate about what you do and you only see the end goal, that business side of it, nobody tells you about that. And I think when you get that early traction, it's so easy to be like, right, I've got something. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I've got all the pieces in place, but then there's this a systematic commercial process that has to happen behind the scenes and literally cannot scale unless that infrastructure is built in. But you don't know what you don't know. So
no, you don't, but equally, I think the one thing I have been good at just by accident is running with it. And obviously I've met so many other entrepreneurs over the last decade, and there's so many people I've met who, I'm a perfectionist, but equally I know when to run. Now I could have gone, okay, I'm going into Tesco, let's spend 6 months designing a box, let's spend 6 months later. And you can't do that, because every day you're stalling, you're not making money. And there's so many people I've met who they've spent so long doing all these different, incarnations of packaging. And do you know what? Our early packaging, I'm really embarrassed by it, but you know what? It sold. And when we had money in the bank, we're able to better it. Even our naturals range in Asda at the moment, I'm really embarrassed because we had to switch that range very quickly before it went in. The buyers at Asda changed their minds. We had literally 5 weeks to put a range together. And it looks like it was put together in 5 weeks. But do you know what? Next month, it's a year on. We've got cash in the bank. It's sold like hotcakes. It's going to go into boxes and it's going to look amazing. So it's just get the product out there. Just ship it. And then, you can perfect it later. So we definitely did that.
So the space has obviously changed a lot since you first started. Organic healthcare has really taken off. So as you were growing and scaling, how do you then get into that point where you as the managing director and CEO are constantly looking forward at the next opportunity? Yeah.
The major retailers keep you on your toes. They constantly want new products and, innovating a bar of soap. I mean, I remember I used to work for this one company and they said, you're going into soap. That's ridiculous. You're never going to make that work. It's the most crowded market possible, which it is, and I'm a very, very little fish in a massive big pond. And I'm not used to that. I like being a big fish. So that's been difficult. And for example, we started off, we went into Tesco regionally, then Waitrose, the buyer with the blue shoes, phoned me up and said what's going on? You suddenly got loads of... I'm going, yeah, well, I asked you, and I did, and I said to her, Tesco have come up with this £40,000 deal, for 40,000 bar deal. Can I put it into Waitrose? And she went, yeah, well, show me what the samples are like. And I'm going, well, I don't have any samples because I've just got to produce them at the factory, so there won't be any samples until I produced it. And she was going, right, well, just send me some samples. And I think that's just ridiculous. So went with Tesco. The samples were the first ones off the run. It was ridiculous. I mean, that was how quickly it was all moving. So then Waitrose is saying, right, we'd like to have the national launch. And I said, that's great. You can have the national launch. Then I'm making it sound easier than it was, but then it went into Boots, it went into Booths, it went into Sainsbury's, it went into, we got into Asda, you know, boom, 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 that kind of ripple effect happened. Now, what I hadn't realized, because remember, I don't know anything about this, was it's like a massive game of chess. And if you're in one store, the other store doesn't like it. So there was then a new buyer at Waitrose, and this buyer had no connection to me, didn't know who I was, didn't care who I was. There was this stuff on her shelf that was everywhere else. So quite rightly, she called me in and said, look, we're thinking about delisting this. What are you going to do about it? And I didn't even know what the word delist was. It's like, oh, what do you mean? Said, well, you know, the Waitrose customer comes in and they want something special and different. And, you know, we were the only national stockist, and now suddenly it's everywhere else. So she turned around and said, so unless you can come up with something a bit different, that's going to be goodbye. I burst out crying because I wasn't expecting that, and said, right, we'll do something different then. What do you want? Tell me about the Waitrose customer. They like lavender, they like rose geranium. Yes, okay, let's create a range. And that was what happened. I created an exclusive range for Waitrose within 6 months of lavender and rose geranium, which has been there for the last 11 years. So
were you doing like cash flow forecasts and getting really into the numbers? So who was helping you with that part, or were you just like, let's see?
Nobody. It was in my head. It was in my head, and I knew what we were shipping out. I was so scared with the numbers. I foolishly didn't have a good accountant from the start because I didn't think the money was there. And because I'm actually dyscalculator, you know, it's like dyslexia, but with numbers, really not great. I was so cautious. I hadn't realized how much money we'd actually got until we sat down and looked. And it was like, oh my goodness, I can afford a team. I can afford an accountant. I can afford that. Now, that all sounds well and good. I was so cautious with the money side. I employed people. They were great at the time, but they weren't scalable, and they liked having a little business and really held the business back for a few years. And it's only been the last 3 years that the business has finally done that. And it's choosing that right team, which is really, really hard. And I have ideas and I run with them, and I'm a finisher completer. And you've got to have people around you that have got that energy. They can tolerate an entrepreneur who comes up with these ideas and is happy to run with them. And I think in the early stages, the people wanted it just to be a small business, and I never wanted that. So that's something I'd learn for the next time, is to have people who want that scale, who will run alongside that vision. So, you know, it's every day is a learning curve. And the team that I've got around me now, the energy, it's just palpable. It's so exciting. And it's ours. Suddenly it's not just mine. And that's such a relief for me that it's, you know, I can go away. I can, you know, the place doesn't fall down. It's wonderful. It's wonderful having that team spirit now.
So how many people are on your team?
So in the office there's 10 of us, usually day to day. Then I've got an external team. I lose count. I think there's about 20 in the external team, including agencies. These are all freelancers, consultants who've brought in. But of that, there's probably 6 who work incredibly closely with the core team. And then there's, you know, design agencies, marketing agencies, etc. So it's exciting now. It's I'm loving it. It's the best moment for me at the moment where we are. So we scaled massively last year, and last year was about putting systems and processes in place, getting this team all together, and kind of just forming the team and getting it solid. So
what did you get to help you understand that that was what was going on with regards to not having the right people in place to help the business scale, and then to identify those specific resources? Because it's not a case of you're looking for really specific skills, and you've got to be able to get into the root of what the problem is.
And it's really hard because you can't just buy a book that tells you how to do that. I was really fortunate. I was selected to go on the Goldman Sachs program in I think it was like one of the earlier cohorts. That was in 2014. That turned me around, because I was like, back then I had no team, and I'm like, I've got such a clever business model. It's just me on the kitchen table. I don't need anyone else. I was killing myself just trying to do the admin. It's another monster, and I can't do that. You know, I know my limits now. I don't even go near it. But there's other people who really like Excel and really like, you know, the kind of like detail, who love doing that. That's great, because I'm rubbish at it. So yeah, the Goldman Sachs program was fantastic, and even now, I mean, I've got so much to learn. I know this accidental leader, And, there's a book in that. There really is. And it's something we talk about because it's really hard. And, I have a member of staff resign who I'm really fond of and I really like, but she feels she's not performing. And it's really difficult. It's really, really hard. So I'm doing another course similar to that called Productivity Through People, which, I'm just started.
That would be the business.
It is exactly that.
Yes, they're brilliant because I 100% agree. Going on the accelerator program that I did changed everything because
the NatWest one that you did.
This was the one with the University of Winchester with the business, and it changed everything. NatWest supported it, and it was having someone with all of those additional years experience on the business side. Being able to point out real obvious flaws that I didn't even realize. I'm like, oh my God. So for every 2 hours I'm working, I'm losing 50 pounds. Like, oh, that's probably not great.
You could employ someone for 15 or 20 pounds to actually do that. Yeah.
Exactly. And then that's when I stopped. Like, why am I dicking around on Canva? Go find someone to do that part. Like,
you could do it in half the time. Yeah.
Right. And it'll actually be good. And it's a really weird kind of awakening because when your financial mindset is one of like scarcity and you're kind of afraid, even if, because I know for me, I'm like in my numbers, but there is a little bit of fear around it. And so then you hoard it, like it has to get to a certain number. And you're like, if you don't start spending it, it's like you're investing, you get that back.
Yeah, you've just got to start. And also that, like the accelerator program, I've not done that, but I've got several friends who have, and it's meeting other people in your boat. And it doesn't matter what they're selling, whether it's a product or a service, we've all got the same problems. We've all, there's people who've been there, done that, who can help. It's all exactly the same. And that's what I found fascinating. And getting that support network is so, so important. So important.
Yeah, because when we were at Downing Street, what really struck me was that it was like the CEO of Music Magpie was talking about and I'm like, wow, like we're all on the same level. Like just being in business, being entrepreneurial, it just comes with this unique set of circumstances. And as business people, I think we owe it to ourselves to really support one another. And I think share the bad, weird parts of it, like the bits you're like, I literally had no idea what I was doing. I just kind of I landed on my feet. So then people don't think that you always have to have your shit together, because most of the time
totally
you really never will. So now that you have national distribution, what does the next stage of the little soap company look like?
We've still got so much more to do in the UK. Obviously, we've got export we can look at. There's lots of offshoots we can look at. There's kind of the CSR side I'm really interested in. We're not there yet. We've only just over 1 million turnover. So we're still a tiny dot on the landscape. If you look at what Procter & Gamble and J&J are doing kind of in the soap world, we are nothing. But we were the first organic soap on the shelves. We were in Tesco and Asda the first natural soap on the shelves for them, if you wanted something at a different entry-level price point. We've now just brought out Eco Warrior, which is mega exciting because that is of the moment. So in terms of innovating, it's trying to think ahead. Now, one thing we've got in our favor compared to the big boys is we can bring out a product within 6 months, from conception, design, packaging, bring it out, take it to the buyer. The bigger companies, it can take 2 to 3 years, which that's why I don't work for anyone, because that would do my absolute head in. It's like, just crack on and do it. So we do have that flexibility and that adaptability. And it's learning that actually, I didn't know, I just presumed everyone could bring it out quickly. It's only when you speak to buyers and to others, you realize actually that's a real plus. So it's good being little sometimes. It does have its pluses.
Do you think there's a world where you might collaborate with like a Procter & Gamble to produce your soaps for them? Or do you don't want them?
I've never been approached, and it's interesting because Unilever certainly are starting to buy up smaller brands but put them out as their own. To me, that's slightly whitewashing, greenwashing. I don't want, it's not quite genuine, because we know what happened with Body Shop, when L'Oreal took it on, and things change. That's what I'd really worry about with my brand, and I think it's having that 100% control over it. I'm always open to suggestions, and I think things could be done very differently, but right now no one's doing it in a good way. But yes, the big boys have got so much clout, and you know, a lot of them are still using plastic wrappers, which to me it's inexcusable. You know, it's a few extra pence to wrap it in a non-plastic. And I think as a business owner, we have a responsibility to do things properly, and we've always done that from the start. We've only ever used RSPO sustainable palm oil because boycotting isn't right, and it's only now everyone's finally understanding that. But you know, for 11, 12 years we've banged on that drum. Now, why aren't the big boys using it? Because it's down to cost, and that's because they haven't got one founder there going, I feel responsible, I want to sleep at night. That's where things do need to change.
Wow, that I just, there is this, because I guess like when you were talking about greenwashing, because sustainability is a big thing. As a small business, you're in a much better position to ensure that trust factor because there is that founder.
Yeah, we know the entire supply chain right down, you know, to the producers. And it's so difficult because we get haters on social media going, you put liquid in a plastic bottle. Well, between you and me, it's probably about 3% of the business what we sell as liquids. The rest is all bar soap. And the reason we do liquids is because we get that audience in and then we convert them to bar. And it's going, this is us, you can trust us. Now do what we're really good at, because that's bar use. You can shave with it, you can like shampoo with it, you can exfoliate with it. It's got so many multifunctions. So we had a lot of haters on social media going, why have you got your liquid soap in a bottle? Because it's not great in a paper bag, you know. It's really hard. And our plastic bottle is okay. It's a virgin PET plastic bottle. It's the best plastic you can have. It does biodegrade in 50 years. You know, it's the best, you know, in terms of a footprint of making it. Now, recycled bottles have come back on the market made up of recycled PET. Because we only use pure essential oil, we can't put our product in that because it erodes and it'll end up leaking. So it's so difficult because others gone, oh, we're in recycled plastic. I'm going, yes, but you've got a synthetic fragrance. Ours is much nicer. It's so hard. It's like McDonald's, you know, McDonald's had plastic straws that were recyclable. They've now got paper straws. My son whinges that when he has a milkshake, he can't actually get the bottom bit out because it's gone all soggy. They can't recycle those straws. So it looks like they've done a really good thing, but actually they've taken 2 steps backwards. So again, it's back to that responsibility, isn't it?
So what recommendation would you have for any product businesses that want to have sustainability at the heart of it, or maybe concerned about cost, establishing ethical supply chains, and I guess knowing when to not so much cut your losses, but to be able to make that decision like you did with the plastic, which is like, come on. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, we're getting rid of all of our unnecessary plastics, so to speak. So, I mean, we've got a range of 4 liquids in Asda, and they're coming out this April, like next month. And we just made that decision that, do you know what? They're not doing as well as they could do. I want to push people to bar. I'm trusting that audience that was buying liquid soap will turn to bar in Asda, because it is still going to be, sadly, the only pure product on their shelves. So we are making conscious decisions and just trying to simplify things. But yeah, in terms of starting your own business, cost, our soap is £3.99 in some supermarkets. Our Eco Warrior is £4.50 a bar. That's expensive.
How do you, sorry, I was going to say, how do you, you know, you've gone from making it on your kitchen table to using a manufacturer to selling it into somewhere like Asda at £3.99. How have your margins been affected? Is it because you're buying in such volume that you can still retain a profit?
Yeah. So our original, let me just go and grab it for you. Our original artisan handmade bar was £6.50 when I first made it.
Yeah.
So hang on. So it's a very old box. So that was the original handmade bar. So I had a generic box and I had a sticker on it, which, you know, held it all together. Then when we started producing the first factory, again, I had a generic box because you couldn't print barcodes on craft, and I really wanted to keep it, you know, looking. Yeah. So suddenly it's the kind of like, once you scale, the margins just get better and better, which feels really wrong, but it is. And even now, we can now go back. I mean, we're just in the process of changing some major suppliers over that we've been with for a long time. and I feel very loyal to them. But because we can go to a bigger facility, they can get the paper in cheaper. They can therefore get the labels in cheaper. And silly things like, we used to have these hand adhered at the factory. We then moved to another factory because that factory couldn't supply they just couldn't keep up with our orders. So we went to another factory, and he said, "There's no way I'm getting our guys to hand wrap, these stupid stickers. It's ridiculous. You need to then get it printed as a proper carton." And I'm going, "Oh my God, it's going to look rubbish. I love this because it looks really sort of artisan and whatever."
Yeah.
Go and chat to a printer because you might be surprised. So this is our printed version, which looks so much better on the shelf. It just pings, it's got this wax laminate on it. It's totally vegan. It's still all cruelty free, tick, tick, tick. But it just looks so much better. All buyers are happy. So it's bettering the product, constantly. It's constantly changing and bettering it.
I suppose actually you've gone from budgeons with a few dozen to large scale. You could make that jump very quickly, whereas I would imagine a lot of other companies might, okay, we're in budgeons and we're going to go into Waitrose on a small scale. Maybe we need to make these ourselves in more volume.
Well, that's what I did. I mean, when I was in budgeons, I was hand making. When I was in Waitrose 8 stores, I was hand making. Then when it was Tesco regional, that was when we had to get a factory. Our growth has been, excuse the pun, it has been very organic. I've never injected a load of cash in. Every single time we've brought out a new range, it's the profits that are paying for it. So we've got no investment. There's nobody coming in telling me what to do, which I wouldn't be very good. So it has been very, very slow growth. I could have done it a lot more quickly. But if someone now just said, here's $500,000, run with it. Yes, we've got big plans of other things to do. But in those early days, I don't know what I'd have done differently, apart from it would have hit the market quicker. But because we've got this 10 years, 12 years provenance and heritage, that's what the buyers like. We're not just, they get people every day sending bars of soap going, "Oh, look, this is Captain Corelli's bar of soap and this is this made up story." This is genuine. And I think that it's, and millennials, Gen Z, Leanna, you can help me with this, that they want real stuff. It's like Marks and Spencer's doing, what's their salmon called? Is it Lock Fine, Lock Muir, whatever it is?
Yeah.
It's a brand. There isn't actually a lot called that, it's.
Does anybody else have any questions? Let's open it up. Is anyone going to? Katrina, is that a question?
No, not from me. It's just really.
Well, I have a few more questions.
Okay.
So when you're looking at bringing out, say, Eco Warrior, how did you actually set that up and decide we're going to create a whole new brand? Like, it can't be underneath the little soap co, because it
is underneath. It is actually underneath. We did think about having it separate. So Eco Warrior is an interesting one because we already had 2 lines in Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's are amazing with their sustainability. And we had a new buyer who'd come over from America. She wanted to turn Sainsbury's into a mini Whole Foods. She had grand plans. And she turned around and said, "I would love you to create a range for Sainsbury's." And I said, "Great." And I said, "I've got all these plans to do like shampoo and this, that, and the other." Now, interestingly, we've had problems with this because it's shampoo. The shampoo buyer therefore wants to have the money from it and add that. So I've had to go, no, they've got to stay in a 6 on the soap bar counter. So we created that originally for Sainsbury's. And the plan was it would roll out into 300 stores. Now, because the world of retail is just constantly changing, the buyer changed jobs just before we launched. There was also miscommunication, and we're now only in 70 stores. So I'm having a complete panic going, I've just made loads believing it was going into 300. Sainsbury's, in fairness, the most amazing partnership and relationships. They said, look, we'll tweak around with the exclusivity deal and see where else you can get it into. And it is going into Waitrose, it has gone into Ocado, it has gone into Boots, and now we're doing a separate range for another major retailer. So they've been amazing. So Eco Warrior was never meant to be what it was meant to just be a one exclusive. So we were very, very fortunate with that. But yeah, with the Asda range, the Naturals range, that was made for Asda, but then we've been, after the year, we've been allowed to put it elsewhere. And it helps, I think just having exclusive in one place, it doesn't help the, us or the customer. So yes, that's an interesting question.
And what about the market? Like, retail is in a really weird space. What what have you been seeing, and how do you think it's going to change over the next kind of 5 years?
Well, if anyone's been into a supermarket the last 2 days, there is no soap on any shelves with the whole coronavirus thing. I mean, it's mega. The Waitrose down the road here from us is just the shelves are bare. There's hardly anything. And it's this mass panic buying, which is really worrying for us immediately because we work on a 3 to 4 month schedule. So we know we're okay, but actually our factories have suddenly got massive leads. And I know a lot of soap that's on those shelves isn't made in the UK. I'm very passionate about keeping it all made in Britain, or made in England even. However, a lot of the soap is from China, it's from Portugal, it's made in the EU, and there's going to be issues. You know, we know there's going to be issues. So it'll be really interesting the next few months because we could never have planned for this. You know, and you can't as a business.
Maybe a little opportunity?
Sorry, an opportunity.
An opportunity?
It's going to be a headache for my operations and our supply team. It really is. I know that much. I'm getting WhatsApps all the time going, what do you think of this? How should we do that? So yeah, I think we just don't know we don't know what's going to happen the next few months. If it was an opportunity, we'd have had warehouses full of it and we'd be shipping it in everywhere right now. But no, we hadn't planned for it. Nobody had. But yeah, in terms of the future, when we started out, there was no organic, no natural soap, no, you know, free from. And now others are joining us, which I celebrate. And I'm embarrassed there's so few. There should be more of us and we should have choice. So it is exciting. You know, I'll be thrilled when it's only pure soap on the shelves. That's my kind of, we started off by going, I want to make pure natural soap accessible to all. And now we've kind of tweaked it to go, we want to make it the norm, not the niche. And that's what it should be.
So to wrap us up, what word of advice would you give to anyone kind of who's currently at their kitchen table? They know they want to scale, they want to do big things, but they're maybe a little bit afraid of what's on the other end.
Don't think about what's on the other end, just do it. And I think don't take no for an answer. People do business with people, you know, and I think that is something that has got us as far as we've got now. You know, be not subservient, that's not the right word, just help people. Buyers are really busy people. They don't want long emails like I used to write reams. I now learn it's bullet points, you know, so it's dealing, it doesn't matter what you're selling, customer, you know, whether it's a service, whether it's a product, it's just be kind, isn't it? It goes back to that. And don't take no for an answer. If you really believe in your, if someone's saying no, and kind of 20 years in, you haven't actually sold a product, I think you should maybe take heed of that perhaps. But yeah, I think make sure your product or your service is absolutely the best it can be.
I love your story about sitting in Waitrose for 2.5 hours waiting for the buyer. Have you read the autobiography of Michelle Mone, you know, who created the Ultimo bra?
I haven't read it, but I've seen her talk.
Yeah, she did the same thing. She turned up at Waitrose. At Selfridges. She came from Scotland with her bra that she developed, and she just sat in reception and cried until they got an appointment, and the rest is history. So I know those buyers are really, really hard to get hold of. So
they are. I was a researcher, that went in my favour, but they are so hold.
Yeah, I mean, I think that took some determination. I mean, have you had a conversation with her since? Did she sort of think, Christ, this woman's sitting here for 2.5 hours, what a bloody cheek, or anything?
I've had several conversations with her successor, and we do giggle about it. And there was one time when we were putting that first order in of the exclusive rose geranium, the exclusive lavender, and there was a problem that the factory were going to have to short the order, which I'd never shorted in my life. And I'd phoned my mom going, oh my God, it's a nightmare. We're going to short the order. It's terrible. And I'd also left a message on Rachel's phone going, I'm so sorry. I don't know what this is. I thought they were going to reject it. My house was on the line because my house was in this juggernaut going down to Waitrose. And my mom was getting a new mobile. So her number, she got some other number come up. Anyway, my phone rang. It was about 8 o'clock that evening. I just presumed it was my mom's number and went, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. They've shorted the order. Rachel's going to be absolutely furious. I think it's going to be rejected on Monday. It's just awful. You know, I've got hundreds of thousands of pounds and it's absolute nightmare. As I took a breath, she went, Emma, it's Rachel. I went, oh my God, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. Why are you calling me? And she said, because I got your panicked email. I'm so sorry. And she said that was such an awakening for her of the problems that the supplier has, because normally it's just, you know, a big lorry, and actually there was a real person in their house kind of like fretting about it all weekend, and she said it's fine to shorten order, people do it all the time, it'll be accepted, don't worry. So yes, it's that human element, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's brilliant. So where will we find the little soap company online?
We're getting a new website. So the website hasn't been touched in about the last 4 years because it is just focused where it's needed. So in the next month or so, it will be all singing and dancing and a lot shinier and a lot more easy to navigate without so many clicks. But it's just littlesoapcompany.co.uk. But do have a look. One thing I'm really proud of, because I've been able to start it from scratch, is our Eco Warrior on Instagram. It's just eco_warrior_soap. I'm so proud of that account, and it's slowly building. We've got like about 1,000 followers on it. It's slowly building. But to me, Eco Warrior is what I wanted Little Soap to be in the beginning, but we were 10 years too early. And now we can be Greta, we can be Extinction Rebellion, we can talk about we're messing our planet up, which we couldn't with our Waitrose customers. You know? So Eco Warrior is, I think that's something quite special.
Right. Well, you've got a tribe of support from the ISPs.
Yeah, really useful.
Proud about it. Thanks so much for your time, Emma. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks, Anne, for your comments as well.